Here is a question that most people don't ask themselves often enough. Everyone is asking themselves, what kind of stock should I buy? What kind of altcoin should I buy? That's where most of the brain capacity is concentrated. But very few people are actually wondering, what kind of size, what kind of betting size should I use? How much of that stock should I buy? How much of that altcoin should I buy? And obviously this is different from person to person, right? The student won't be able to buy as much as the millionaire, but there are some guidelines. What's important to understand is that even though you might be very strongly convinced about an asset, it never makes sense to have like your entire portfolio in one single asset, right? We want to somewhat diversify because there's always a luck component as well, right? Any kind of investment involves both luck and skill. There is some uncertainty. And so, of course, you cannot deterministically say what the outcome will be. And because of that, it makes sense to not put all the eggs in a single basket. Now, does it make sense to have 100 assets because of that? Probably not, because you cannot follow 100 assets very much. As in, it's hard to time the market very well for 100 assets, to know a lot about 100 assets. So there's somewhat of a balance to be made here, right? How many assets should you hold in a portfolio? I believe the minimum should be 5, as in the maximum exposure per asset should be 20%, because that's where you get mathematically a lot of the diversification benefit, but on the other hand, you're also somewhat concentrated. And 5 is also a good number to keep up with the news, right? To be up to date about your investments. But then, does it make sense to just have this equal split? Or does it maybe make sense to overweigh some stocks or some altcoins and underweigh others? I believe exposure to an asset should be in line with your time horizon. The longer your time horizon is for an asset, the more you can be exposed to that asset, because the less variance, the less luck there is. For example, for a house, right? You're not buying a house today in order to sell it next week. Usually, right? You would buy a house in order to hold this for many, many years. And so you can have high exposure to this because over the very, very long term, houses tend to appreciate because fiat depreciates. Within crypto, it doesn't make sense to have most of your exposure in Bitcoin, right? Because it's very likely that 10 years from now, Bitcoin will be higher than it is today. Again, because of fiat inflation. Again, because it's unlikely that Bitcoin will suddenly get outlawed, that it will suddenly get forgotten. However, if you're betting on smaller markets, let's say a small altcoin, you don't want to be exposed to that too much. In other words, I am not a fan at all to use leverage on small altcoins if you don't have a specific market edge. So the way to think about this is that different markets have different efficiencies. So efficiency is simply just how close is the current price to the fair price. If you have a very small market where you cannot scale a lot, you tend to have a lot of inefficiencies. So let's say the flea market or garage sales, right? You've got a very fragmented market. You can't easily scale this up to say $1 million of trades every day. And so the people that have a lot of skill tend to not go into those markets, right? Simply because you cannot earn that much in dollar terms. The bigger the market gets and the more fungible the asset is, the more efficient it tends to be. So let's say something that's semi-big and semi-efficient and semi-fungible, that would be the car market. Right? There are different car models and they might be different in pricing. You've got different ages, you've got different mileage. There's all kinds of variables, but still the ticket price is relatively high comparatively to, say, the flea market. And so the pricing is somewhat more efficient, right? In a flea market, you might get something that's worth 3 or 4 times of what you have bought it. In a car market, that's very unlikely because the ticket price is higher, because more people do this professionally. And why can more people do this professionally? Simply because you move more money with every single trade. So what does fungibility actually mean, right? It simply just means that you can replace one item for the next. So when you've got the stock market, you've got 100% fungibility, right? 100 stocks of company A will still be 100 stocks of this other guy of company A. You can simply just exchange them. There's no difference. And so the stock market tends to be more efficient. People that know the stock market very well can easily scale up their positions, right? They can easily move 10 million in most stocks, at least in the larger stocks. And so we can even distinguish within the stock market, right? Probably the smaller stocks, the micro caps, are less efficiently priced than, say, the top 10 in the S&P 500. Again, because for the top 10 in the S&P 500, it's worth it for the banks to deploy experts. It's worth it to pay experts to find out the fair pricing and potentially beat the market. For those microcaps where I can only move a few $100,000, that might not be true. This video is sponsored by the Premium membership. I never take any money from any crypto project. I never take any affiliate links from centralized exchanges. I never pump and dump coins. Instead, I offer valuable tutorials in the premium membership. Feel free to check it out. And so in answering the question how much to bet on a particular asset, you have to ask yourself how much luck is involved here versus how much skill is involved here. There's probably not too much luck if you buy Bitcoin today and you hold it over the next 10 years. You are betting on the climate, not on the weather tomorrow. Whereas when you buy your small altcoin, this might be different, right? A single whale might be dumping on you and completely liquidate your leverage position. It's impossible to predict what those heavyweights will be doing with the price. In other words, it might be less risky to actually buy Bitcoin with leverage, say 1.5x leverage, hold this over the long term, versus buying an altcoin directly spot, because the altcoin you cannot hold for that long, right? It's pretty uncertain where the altcoin will be in 10 years. We don't know what the competition will do. We don't know what the team will do. There's so many uncertainties, and that then prevents us from holding long term. Now, not every single trade where there's a lot of skill involved versus little luck has to be long in duration. There's also very short-term trades that have very little luck involved, if you have the skill. So let's say you program a front-running bot and you know that there's a trade in the mempool and you buy this with higher gas fee and then you sell it directly after that purchase. You program sandwich trading, then you make instant profit because you've got the knowledge edge, you've got the technology edge. You might be holding that asset only for a second, but still it's a safe bet. Or same for, say, arbitrage trading, right? You've got different liquidity pools. The pricing is not 100% aligned. You buy the cheap pool, you sell the expensive pool. You do this instantly. The holding period is very, very short, but still the luck component is non-existent. Again, because you know so much. And so in order to outperform the market, right, you can either simply lever up long-term bets or you can know a lot. What we do in Premium, for example, is we track wallets. We track wallets of profitable traders. We also track wallets of other influencers. And so we see when an influencer buys a token, then we might be buying together with that influencer once he's buying. And then we're waiting for the influencer to promote the token, say on their YouTube. And then, of course, once the video hits, the price goes up because there's so much attention on the token with that YouTube video. This is a way to also be somewhat short-term, right? We don't know when the video will be published, if that's going to be in 1 or 2 days or in 1 or 2 weeks. But still, we have somewhat of a market edge. There is some luck involved, right? We don't know what happens from the purchase date to the publishing date. But in the end, the expected value of that trade should be positive because the likelihood of the influencer talking about that coin when they bought it beforehand is very, very high. And when they talk about it, price shoots up. So I don't think it's wise to lever up positions where you do not have a real market edge. To simply just buy an asset on 2 or 3x because you drew lines on a chart and you think, okay, here's a support, here's a resistance. And so I lever this up in order for this bounce to not just go 5%, but maybe 50%. I don't think that's the right way to go about this because there's simply too much uncertainty in the short term if you don't have very specific information that other people don't have. I do believe, though, in levering positions that are either very long-term in duration or where you do know something that others don't. Don't try to beat the currency market, right? The currency market is huge. The currency market is 100% fungible. There are a lot of Einsteins, a lot of very smart quant traders in the currency market. Try to beat the smaller markets first. And if you don't have yet enough money to invest in crypto, right? Let's say your portfolio is still below $5,000, then maybe try those smaller markets, right? Try trading the flea market, for example. Try going on Facebook market. Try those kind of things. It is a lot of work, but it's probably going to be better ROI relative to your investment than if you were to take a market that's very scalable, where you do have also higher competition. Again, the more you can scale your position, the more fungible the thing is that you're trading, the harder the competition and the harder it is to beat the market. It's easier to beat the meme coin market, where there's a lot of new entrants in the market that don't really know what they're doing. It's easier to beat that market compared to trying to time the ups and downs in the stock market or, say, in the currency market. If it's the first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. Feel free to also check out the Telegram channel. It's down below. It's free. See you over there. Cheers.